Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and I just finished watching Thor: Love and Thunder. And this movie was a bit of a mess from both a plot and character perspective, but it really wrestled with some very interesting ideas and had so much potential for greatness. And the fact that it had so many opportunities to be incredible, but failed every single time, brings it down in my estimation of the film. Because if you're just never even getting close to greatness, then, you're just average. But if you fail every single time you have an opportunity to be great, then you're just crap. And that's kind of what this movie came out to be. There were a lot of great moments that could have been better and could have tied together. There was just a lot going on. There was just too many side plots distracting from everything. I feel like if you took out these individual side plots and developed them into their own movies, it would be a lot better because, like, for example, the Cancer Thor bit, the Jane Foster Thor bit, that actually wasn't as bad as I was expecting considering modern day Hollywood, but it needed more time to develop. We needed to see her truly grappling with the sense of impending death. It never felt like she was really ever worried, even in the beginning before she gets Mjolnir. And of course, when you mention her, you gotta mention how retarded it is that she's called Mighty Thor. Thor is his name, not a mantle. Call her like the goddess of thunder or Thunderosa or give her own name. But she's not a Thor. They said that a few times in the movie. I'm the Mighty Thor. Oh, you're a Thor. We need a Thor with us. No, she's not a Thor. She's Jane Foster. Thor is his name, not a mantle. I'm not a big fan of mantle passings in general, but at least when a mantle passing, there's a title that goes with it. Not just stealing the guy's name. It's identity theft. And as Dwight would say, identity theft is not a joke. But beyond that ridiculous thing with the whole naming situation, she had a lot of potential in her arc, and I actually liked a lot of what they did. They just fell short every single time that there was an opportunity to truly develop it. And because they did that, some of the stuff that happened to her at the end of the movie didn't really land as well as it could have. And just like Jane's bit, everything with Gore was incredible. Christian Bale is a great actor and always brings his A game, and he definitely did in this movie. The first few minutes of the film when he's, in the desert, his introduction is really, really good, and I connected to his character, and for a moment I thought maybe this is a little bit more of a serious film than I was led to believe. Maybe there's a chance that this will be good. Maybe he'll be involved in the movie more. It was just too little of him, and he was stretched out too much, and they didn't really explore a lot of the concepts because his mirrored journey with Jane was an interesting one that I think should have been the key to the resolution at the end, is that they are going through very similar journeys, but he just didn't have enough screen time. Valkyrie offered nothing to the movie. You could have taken her out of the movie and nothing would have changed. Take her screen time, give it to Gore, give it to Jane, develop those stories, or better yet, make Gore his own movie and make Jane her own movie, and just actually flush out these great ideas that you just plopped in there and it's like, oh, cool idea. That's it. They just introduce a lot of cool stuff, but never pay it off. And when it comes to Thor, he's just the butt of every single joke. He is horrific in this movie. Not Chris Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth is always incredible, always great, always love him. But it's just, he's not even the hero of his own story. He's a bit pathetic, and he's making himself look ridiculous all the time. And it really drew me out of the movie. And that kind of ties into the bigger problem with the movie, is the humor was too much. I really enjoyed Ragnarok. I think that balanced the humor and the seriousness very well. This film did not make that balance whatsoever. Every serious moment was undercut by a joke as soon as it happened. Whereas with the Ragnarok, there were serious moments that really made impact on the story, like Asgard getting destroyed, like the death of Odin. There was just a lot of examples of that balance. This movie had zero balance whatsoever, and I think that's going to be a big problem for it, is the Marvel humor was just far, far too much. Before I get any further, there will be spoilers ahead, so spoiler alert. So yeah, most of the movie was just cobbled together with the barest of plot, the barest of dialogue. The dialogue was just some kid thinking he's smart, but he's really not all that smart. The dialogue was horrific throughout the entire film. There was not a single line that I could pick out and it's like, ooh, that's a good line. It was all just like, wow, Marvel joke again, really? And I like I mentioned earlier, I really did love the Gore stuff, but I didn't like how he got the Necro Sword and how Null was just there dead on the ground. Null is a very important character in the Marvel comics, and just to see him there dead on the ground very much undercuts his importance, and the sword just floating up to Gore, I feel like it would have been a lot more impactful if he had consciously made the decision, and he's like, oh, this sword can do this, I can have my revenge if I can just reach the sword, and then he actually does something and puts some effort in to receive the sword. I think that would be good. foot, but it's just like, oh, I'm about to die. Oh, Swordy, save me day. It was a bit pathetic, and yeah, especially everything with Null, that wasn't great. Just gonna say that. And again, when it comes to Thor, it's like the 5th time he's been finding himself. He's thousands and thousands of years old, man. He's had more midlife crises and character reevaluations than any other person. And it's just getting old. I'm sick of Thor finding himself. And at the end of the movie, they do kind of imply that he's meant to be a dad, and that's his best life. So let's hope in whatever future project, because it definitely seems like he's coming back, that he's not just finding himself again, because I'm very much sick of that. And when it comes to the CGI and the visual effects, they were rough. They were all very, very rough, especially when they filmed on the volume, that Mandalorian like moving screen thing. You could tell it looked like a flat background half the time, and you could really feel it felt two-dimensional, like the walls were closing in even when they're out in the open. The volume, the technology isn't quite there yet. It's not quite ready to be in these big budget movies yet. It's just not quite there. And then the CGI, there's a moment where Thor teleports using Zeus's lightning bolt, and that looks like some backyard iPhone CGI app thing, and it just looks like crap. And speaking of that, they never previously mentioned that Zeus's lightning bolt was capable of intergalactic travel. I think it would have been nice to at least mention it beforehand. And that's kind of connected to a bigger problem in the whole story. Traveling throughout the galaxy isn't a big deal in this movie. It's just like, oh, we don't have Stormbreaker anymore? Well, we can do it this way. We can do it that way. Oh, I'm suddenly here. Don't even need to explain it. The galaxy feels so small, especially at the end when Jane shows up to save Thor in the final battle with Gore. There's no way she should have been able to get there because, yeah, both Stormbreaker, the Lightning, the Pegasus can't interspatial travel as far as we know, so having her flying in the Pegasus is not an explanation. So they just need to explain a lot more stuff. There's no connective tissue between the scenes, and there's no way that people should have gotten to one place to another. And speaking of explanations, they had barely anything when it came to why Jane was able to reforge the hammer and pick it up, and it creates some other issues, is why Mjolnir didn't do that with the battle for Thanos, or even with Hela. If it was capable of reforging to that degree, it would have been incredibly useful. And that also ties into Thor being able to give his powers to a bunch of other people. Can you imagine how useful that would be in an Avengers movie? I mean, I love Captain America, but him being powered up with the abilities of Thor made him a force to be reckoned with. So imagine if Thor was able to do that to all the Avengers in the final fights with Thanos in Infinity War and Endgame. There would have been no issue defeating Thanos. But, you know, they keep introducing stuff that hurt stuff in the past. And that's repeated in this film, as with a lot of the other movies in Phase 4. And then, of course, the Guardians of the Galaxy were marketed to be a big part of this movie. They were barely in the first 10-15 minutes. I really wish they would have been in it more because their scenes were great. All the Guardians, I love the casting, those characters. They're all just great. So I just wish they were in it more. Now, this last thing may not affect other people to the same degree that it affects me. I'm a big fan of Greek mythology. I've researched it a lot, and it holds a very personal place to me. So seeing the Greek deities treated that way really rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like them being treated as a joke. I'd wish they treated them the same way they treated the Norse gods in the first few Thor movies, with a degree of respect and wonder. But they were just a joke, and I really wasn't a fan of that in any way, shape, or form. That's just me. I think Greek gods should be respected a little bit more than that, but that's a lot of my own personal biases coming through when it comes to that aspect of it, so that may not have been as big of a deal to the rest of you. Totally fine if it wasn't, and just for me, that was a big deal and really took me out of the movie. Overall, this movie has so much potential to be great, but it fails to achieve that greatness at every single turn. It's just flushed with too many plot ideas that have zero connective tissue from scene to scene and not connected by the dialogue whatsoever. So it's just a lot of that potential is what hurts it as well, because if it had zero potential and then lived up to that zero potential, I don't think it would be as disappointing as it is, because there's a lot that could have been good, a lot to like in this movie. I do believe it's the best Disney Marvel film in Phase 4, a lot better than Doctor Strange, but because it failed at all that potential, it's probably going to get a very equivalent score to Doctor Strange. It's not as broken as the Doctor Strange plot. The Doctor Strange plot was nonsensical. At least this one had a little bit better, a little bit more thought, and some better acting to be sure, especially when it came to the villain. So I'm going to have to give this movie a 5 out of 10. Maybe a 5.2. I won't give it any higher because, yeah, it just fails at every opportunity it has to be incredible. And there's just so much good that was lost and squandered. And I just not okay with that. So I had to judge it as such. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.